everybody, it's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter.
And I'm Sew Becca. And Ian, before we get into our podcast, I have something for you.
Okay.
So there is...
Oh, I thought you were giving me the quilt. I'm like, yes,
no,
I will.
you cannot have the quilt.
Oh.
But I promised somebody at Cotton Cuts that I would do this thing for you.
Okay.
So why don't you tell the world about Flyway,
Okay.
the puzzle mystery quilt, and the colorway that you're doing?
Okay, well, Flyway is the newest puzzle mystery quilt that starts in February, so it's coming
right
up
around
really
the corner.
Yeah, it's coming up really quickly. So Flyway is getting started very, very soon, so make sure to sign up. You can use my code IANFLY whenever you sign up. That'll give you a free gift with your first clue. And it's a 10-month, if you've never done the puzzle mystery quilt before, it's a 10-month process where you get clues in the mail, you put them together, and then at the end of 10 months, you get to see what the quilt looks like because they send all the directions to you. Super excited, and my colorway is unknown at this moment.
Except it's really known.
Oh, is it?
I have the first clue from Cotton Cuts for Flyway.
Oh.
And Paula reached out to me and said, could you give this to Ian in the next podcast so that he can open it and show everybody what his colorway is going to be?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I wished I had my little drum roll.
Yeah. We'll make one. Okay.
So let's see what colorway you got. Okay. I'm excited to see this.
I wasn't expecting this. I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. Oh, I can't see. It's too dark in there. Oh, it's the Riley Blake one. I don't remember the name of it.
Wait, can I see? Oh, florals. That's so you,
I know,
Ian.
it's totally me.
Florals.
Okay. All right.
And greens and browns to boot. Let me see. Wait, hold on. Let me see what that is. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what that was. I wanted to make sure it was not for me.
Is it Hummingbird? I think
that's
the
name of the colorway.
Yeah, the
for
colorway.
Listen, I'll be Team Hummingbird if you don't want this. This is pretty. But is that your cup of tea? Are you excited about that?
I mean, it's different. It's going to push me out of my comfort zone a little bit. It's gonna make me I mean, it's funny because on the last puzzle mystery quilt, you weren't thrilled with your colorway.
Right.
And then by the end of it, you loved it. So I'm sure by the end of it, I will enjoy it. It does have some nice greens in it. So
you got a card in there too. What's the card say?
I got a card in there? Oh, yeah. I do have a card. I didn't even see that. What does it say? It says Cotton Cuts. Ian, we wanted to let's see.
Do you want me to get it?
Yeah, I do.
Ian, we wanted to find a fun, creative way to let you know what colorway you're sewing for our next puzzle mystery quilt Flyway. We love what the voters chose for you, really stepping you out of the box this time. We can't wait to see it come to life. Team Cotton Cuts.
Awesome.
So there you go.
Interesting.
All right.
Okay.
There you go, Paula.
Paula. Thank you, Paula. I appreciate it.
Can I have the scraps?
Sure. It's a nice little. You could do a fun scrappy bag or something.
I think you should keep them because they were sent to you. But
well,
yeah, you
true.
could. You
That's
could
true.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get on with the podcast.
Yeah.
Today we want to talk about quilt shows.
Yeah.
But before we do, we need to talk about the quilts that are on our laps. So why don't you go first, and I'll talk about my repeat.
Well, funny you should mention about quilt shows because that's going to be the theme of the episode. But this is the quilt Pencils Down. I forgot the name for half a second. It's called Pencils Down. And it's funny because this quilt was never meant to be in quilt shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really supposed to be a quilt that was just on my bed, just a usable quilt. But I've even washed it. And then I needed a quilt for 2 different shows. It's been in 3 shows now that I think about it. It was already washed, but I wanted to put it into a show anyways, just to put my name out there. And it ended up winning some ribbons in a couple of different spots. So yeah, I love this one. This one has I think it's the jot line from Crimson Tate. And Nancy did the quilting on it, and she did a whole bunch of free motion pencils and pencil sharpeners in the quilting of it. So really love this quilt. It's a lot of fun, and it is a pattern that I made myself.
Okay. Can people download the pattern? Because that's going to be the question. Where do I get the pattern?
Literally all half square triangles.
You
Literally.
just arranged them.
Yep. I just arranged all 1,000,005 half square triangles.
So the quilt that I have on my lap is the one that I call Chunky Stripe. I've had it on the podcast before. The reason why it's on my lap again tonight is because there's Minky on the back of it, and it is cold.
I'm not used to it being so cold.
Mm-hmm.
It is usually not this cold this long in Texas.
Well, it is colder than it normally is.
Yeah.
This winter is very cold. But one of the things that I appreciate about Virginia, as opposed to where I grew up in Michigan, is that even when it's cold and frigid outside, it's still sunny.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sunlight.
Yeah.
And in Michigan, like September timeframe, it starts getting overcast and it doesn't stop until like May.
Oh my.
So it's just gloomy and yucky. And I mean, you get some sunny days, but just with the lake effect, there's a lot of clouds. So I really appreciate that even when it's below freezing outside and you don't want to leave the house, you still have the sunlight. So that's nice.
And it also creates one of my favorite scientific words. Sublimation.
Oh, geez, we talked about that, we're not even going there right now. Like, come on. Anywho, I do have another quilt to show because I wanted to show something new. And I thought since we were talking about quilt shows, I could show this quilt. So this is called Whirl of Wings.
Oh, sorry.
It is a quilt that I pieced and quilted myself. It is the result of what was meant to be a YouTube collaboration, but the bottom just kind of fell out of the collaboration.
It happens.
Donna from Handmade by Ying picked up this pattern when she was at QuiltCon in Raleigh. And she asked a few YouTube channels if they wanted to get together and do this. I was one of them. Then she had her stroke and life happened and everybody got busy and the collab video just never really happened. But Donna and I did make the project. Donna made her quilt. I made mine. I showcased it in a video, but I don't know if the others ever made theirs. I know Donna did hers. So anyway, I'm excited about this one. The reason why I brought it today is because I entered it into the Dallas Quilt Show. And I'm really excited because this is a quilt that I pieced and quilted and bound and put the sleeve on all by myself. So this gets to go into the one-person category. I'm very excited about that.
That is very exciting.
It is. It is very exciting.
Very, very exciting. And talking about categories...
That's probably our first topic.
Probably our first topic, absolutely. Categories for quilt shows.
So, like, how do you know which one to pick, right?
Yeah.
I had a hard time with that, too.
Yep. I remember talking to you about it when we were entering the Dallas Quilt Show because there are a lot of options a lot of times when entering quilt shows. You have one person, you have two person, you have kits, you have large quilts, you have wall quilts, you have mini quilts, you have traditional quilts, you have modern quilts. It runs the full gamut, and it can be really confusing. Even for me, who I've entered a lot of quilt shows, I have to be very careful when reading that. Usually every show will put a PDF or some kind of documentation out that goes through all the rules of the quilt show and who can enter what category and all that kind of stuff. So it can be really, really confusing, and the biggest advice that I have is read it all the way through. Read all the pages, read everything that document has in it, because it will answer a lot of the questions.
And I think the category is important too, because if you put your project in the wrong category, you could, if you're looking to get a ribbon, not everybody that's entering a show is looking to get a ribbon, but if that is your end game, you could be setting yourself up for failure. For example, you have entered a quilt into a couple of quilt shows and you put it into one category. I think we're talking about Vortex, Rainbow Vortex. That was a kit and you did not enter it into the kit category. I think you entered it somewhere else. And you didn't win a ribbon, but after having been at the quilt show, you said based on what you saw, had that been in the kit category, you felt very confident that you would have walked away with some sort of ribbon.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually the Dallas Quilt Show. I put it into the two-person large quilt category. And after talking to some of the people with the knowledge behind that show, they were like, "Oh, that was a really competitive category. That was not the best place to put that quilt if you were looking for a ribbon." Now, I'm happy that it got on display. I love that it got on display. And a lot of times when I'm entering quilt shows, it's to get my name out there. I've now landed in Northern Virginia, DC. It's time to start getting my name out into this area. And it's funny because walking through quilt shows, sometimes you can start picking up on people and being like, oh, I know exactly whose quilt that is. Without even looking at the name tag or anything, I know whose quilt that is. But it can get really confusing. And if I had just entered that into the kit category, because they did allow it into the 2-person large quilt category, if I had just entered it into the kit category, there were only 8 quilts in that category, and mine would have made the 9th quilt. So I would have had a larger chance of getting one of the ribbons from that category if I had entered it into the correct category. So and a lot of times quilts can fit into multiple categories. And so it's if you're looking for a ribbon, you got to kind of predict which category is
going to have the least competition.
Is going to have the least competition. Also, if that's what you're going for, not everybody does. So if you just want it on display, put it anywhere that you want to. But if you're looking to specifically win ribbons from shows, it's a numbers game and trying to figure out, okay, if I put it in this category, where do you think it'll end up with? So it's a lot of kind of predicting the future in a way of like, well, I think this category might not have as many people, so I'm going to enter it into that. And then it's also several times of, well, it could fit into both of these categories, but it fits a little better into this category versus this one. So it kind of is figuring out what that is. And a lot of times I'm actually in a chat group on Instagram with quilters who enter into a lot of the shows, AQS, QuiltCon, all that kind of stuff. And even sometimes they have trouble figuring out which category to enter. And so they'll post a picture of it in that chat and be like, okay, guys, I can't figure out which category to put this in. Which one do you think it would be best fit for? Or which one do you think it would be the best for it? So it's a numbers game and really thinking about it and all that kind of thing. It's a lot. It's a lot. So, but it can be really rewarding and a lot of fun.
You just made my brain explode.
I know.
Like all I heard is wah, 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 wah. Like literally, ain't nobody got time for that. It was a lot. I think for me, I have had like 1% experience that you have had. Most of my shows that I've entered have been guild shows, right? Or the state fair, and that's actually really easy. Like I knew I was making a dowel quilt for the state fair, so I made the quilt for that for the category, right? Yeah. So that's what I did there. But other times, like I've just thrown spaghetti at the wall, and I've been like, oh, it's a quilt, okay, traditional, yeah. And then I went. And I was super excited. So I was like, oh, Ian's won a ribbon. Maybe I'll win this. I'm talking about Mid-Atlantic last year. I was like, oh, maybe one of mine will win a ribbon or get some sort of award. And I was really, really strongly like, okay, the quilting on Ursa, my Legit Kits polar bear, isn't great, but I did it myself. And the piecing is good. And it's beautiful. And I'm excited about this. So I thought it was going to place well until I saw the competition. And the judges picked up on that it was a kit, and it was very disappointing because when I got the report back, I could see the erasure. Like they went through and gave me excellent on just about everything, and then had to erase it and take it back because they found out it was a kit. Yeah. I think I did tell them it was a kit. Like I wasn't trying to pull wool over anybody's eyes, but they must not have seen that when they saw it in the traditional category, and they're like, "Oh, you don't qualify for judging for some of these categories, right? Because you didn't pick out the design, you didn't put any thought into the fabric color. Like none of that's you." Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, you're right." Yep. You're right. So that was a little disheartening. Yeah, it is. It is disheartening, and it's really important to really consider where that quilt needs to go. Yeah. So, it's a lot of
kind of research. You kind of got to do your research. And we had a conversation as you were trying to figure out which quilts you wanted to enter into Dallas.
It was nice having you kind of like looking over my shoulder and being able to soundboard that with you and just vocally process, okay, I think this could go here, but what about here? But it was also nice because you know that show so well that you could be like, okay, well, I think this quilt's going to do really well in this category. I wouldn't have had that insight. So that was really nice. I did appreciate that. So I think the takeaway here is know the categories.
Absolutely.
Know the rules for the categories, and maybe have some friends that can help process and think through where it should go.
Absolutely.
And if you've got any experience with the show, just kind of scope out what that competition looks like.
That's a big one, is like, if you know the show, it can help a lot. Because you can see the competition from previous years and be like, oh, this is a really competitive category because there's like 50 quilts in this one category. Like, oof, this is going to be a lot to compete with. But you know, I'm a little nervous, to be honest, because I have now moved from the category of artisan.
Well, for Dallas.
For a lot of them.
Oh, really?
A lot of quilt shows you have a designation of artisan, which is kind of your like intermediate beginner level where it's not like, it may not be your full-time gig. It may be just a hobby for you, or, you know, you haven't entered many shows or, you know, things like that. And then you have your master level. And I have officially moved into the master level because I've won 2 blue ribbons. And for a lot of shows, if you've entered and placed in large shows like QuiltCon and national shows like that, that moves you into the master level. I've won 2 blue ribbons in my history of quilting, and that moves me a lot of times into the master level because it's, I don't want to say it's like guidelines across every single show there is, but a lot of times if they break you up into artisan or master, if you've won 2 blue ribbons, if you're a professional quilter, if you like write and sell patterns, all those published patterns, thank you. Then that moves you into the master level, which now means that my game has to step up again because I've exhausted the artisan level and I'm now up against like master level quilters.
Great. So in Dallas, I'm the artisan because I don't have a published book or a published set of patterns. I just have instructions that I have typed up on my own, and that is allowable. I am not an industry professional. I don't do commission work. I do have a long arm, but I don't provide that for anybody else. Nor do I get to roam the country and teach or do any of that other stuff. So technically, I'm an artisan, which is going to make it easier for me, but you're not. So I know what I put in. I don't remember. What did you enter?
I entered Showering Stars.
Okay. And that's the really pretty one that you did the sew along with that Beth did graffiti quilting on. That quilting makes that quilt shine.
I know. I love it. I cannot wait to see what happens. I know my competition is going to be fierce, but I'm so excited to see if that one ends up getting a ribbon. I entered that one, and I also entered Change Happens.
That's Margot the Boxer.
Margot the Boxer from Legit Kits.
Is that in the kit category?
It is in the kit category.
Oh, that's good.
So that is where it needed to be, and I can't wait to see what happens with that one. If I remember correctly, you did put a kit into that show as well, did you?
Oh, gosh, I can't remember the 3 that I entered. I know I did this one. I did Excluded.
Oh, that's right.
But I don't remember the 3rd one. I'll have to look at the receipt.
No, I'm excited to see what Excluded does.
Oh, I did do a kit because I think I did the Flock of Geese. The Bliss quilt along from Sew Sampler.
But, yes, that's right.
Yeah, but it was like a group quilt because a couple of us, Beth quilted it and 2 people pieced it.
So, I'm excited to see what happens this year. We actually have to mail off our quilts right before QuiltCon.
Oh gosh, 28 days to QuiltCon. But when this drops, it'll be 21.
I know. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I
got my sticker order in. Anyway.
But yeah, so categories, make sure you're reading all of the paperwork. Make sure you're reading all the things. If you are shipping quilts, that adds another
Okay,
layer.
let's just segue. We already talked about categories. Shipping,
Oh,
because you just brought that up. We've
yeah.
got to ship them.
Yep.
Uh,
Sometimes,
what?
if the show is not
No, I
located
know.
near
So
you.
you have two ways to get your quilt there.
Mhm.
The first way is you can physically drop it off and
Yep.
physically pick it up. But
Yep.
then if you're not able to do that for whatever reason, some
Some
quilt
shows.
shows will allow you to mail it in.
Mhm.
So what are your tips for mailing your quilt?
Pray. No. So there's a few tips that I have. First of all, is make sure to use a sturdy box. Your
Oogie.
Amazon boxes, your Target boxes, your run-of-the-mill boxes are not usually sufficient.
Sufficient.
That word,
Mhm.
for shipping quilts. They work. You can do them. But a lot of times when I get Amazon boxes, they're real beat up. And so I actually bought a double-walled cardboard box to ship my quilts in because I really want to make sure that it gets shipped correctly and that it doesn't end up damaged or like the box busting
Okay,
open.
so a nice sturdy like
box.
moving box, like a good quality moving box.
Absolutely.
All right. And then once you have that box, how do you package the quilt inside of it?
So there are several different ways to fold quilts. A lot of times we don't want those wrinkles in quilts. Like you don't want to get it to a quilt show, them hang it up, and then it's all just like, hanging all like, hey, what's up? You really want to make
Can you
sure.
do that again?
Hey, what's up? So it's really important to fold your quilts. There's so many different ways to do it. There's so many YouTube videos on how to fold quilts to make sure that they are as wrinkle-free as possible. So you can actually look on YouTube for biased folding and butterfly folding and all the different techniques that you need to fold up a quilt. You also want to ship your quilt in a bag, plastic bag.
In case something happens to the box.
Exactly. In case it's punctured, in case it gets wet, in case of everything. It's important to make sure to put it inside a plastic bag to keep it dry, to keep it clean, and all that kind of stuff. And when you're packaging up your quilt, you haven't seen my process yet. We'll have to do the process together when it's time to mail our quilts.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw mine in your box. It's fine.
Well,
Anyway.
but for me, there's a whole process of I will take a clean bed sheet and lay it out on the floor. I'll get blue tape and I'll actually tape it down, lint roll it, maybe even vacuum it. And then I will lay the quilt out and do lint rolling on the quilt because I have the first show that I entered, I got points taken off because there was cat hair on the quilt.
Oh, wow.
And so little things like that can actually deduct points off of your score whenever the judges are looking at it. So I was very surprised because I didn't feel like it was overly furry. It definitely, you couldn't run your hand across it with all the fur, but there were a couple of pieces of hair on there and it ended up causing me to lose some points on it. So I always try to lint roll all of my quilts before I put them into the bag. A lot of times you also need to include, and the rules will specify per show, if you need to include a pillowcase, and that pillowcase is so that way as they're setting up and taking down the show, they're transporting your quilt in that pillowcase to make sure it's protected and clean and not touching just the ground as they're moving it around from place to place. So it's important a lot of times to make sure that you include that pillowcase and have it ready for shipment and all that kind of stuff. Not always, not every show does that, but a lot of them.
How does the quilt get back to you?
So the quilt, some shows will do return shipping. They include it in your cost of entering the show. Some shows require you have already put in a prepaid
return.
So it just depends on the show and what they want to do.
Do they ship it back in the same box?
A lot of times they'll ship it in the same box. I have gotten a different box back, and I'm like, this is definitely not my box, but okay. And I've also gotten a different plastic bag as well. So don't always assume that you're going to get the same box or plastic bag back.
You get the same pillowcase.
You do get the same pillowcase. You do
get the same quilt.
Yes. But you don't. But sometimes you just don't get the same plastic bag or box. But It is what it is. And the other thing that I recommend, if you are serious about quilt shows and shipping them across country, halfway across the country, whatever, I highly recommend putting some kind of tracker on your quilt.
Now, we talked about this.
We did.
So I know that you had been sewing Apple AirTags into your quilts as a way to keep an eye on it, not as a way to collect anybody's personal information because it's a passive device, but just as a way to make sure that if it gets lost, you know exactly where that quilt is, right? Or the last place that it was seen.
Yes.
So I know that that's something that now you can't do with some shows.
Some shows are now starting to say that you can't include a tracking device for safety reasons. They don't want any safety issues. So some shows are now saying that you can't. Again, read the directions, read what they have to say, because it can tell you if you can or cannot include a tag. And it's really unfortunate because I do know currently there is a quilter on Instagram whose quilt is lost. Yeah.
Oh.
And if they had had a Apple AirTag or other AirTag or some kind of tracking device, they would be able to locate it. But unfortunately, this person is, I mean, they've already missed the show. It's not going to be available for the show, and they don't know if they're ever going to see that quilt again.
Oh my God.
And that really, I understand the safety reasons 100%. I get where they're coming from, but also it's really, really upsetting to lose a quilt in shipping. And it makes me really nervous about shipping quilts. So it's one of those things that you kind of take the risk whenever you're entering.
And I think what you had told me is the one quilt show that we were talking about, the volunteers take some of those quilts home. And so if you've got a tracking device in there, then you're unknowingly able to see where somebody lives. You don't know who it is, but you see somebody's residence, somebody's location, because a quilt is with them.
Yeah.
Which is funny because you actually had, before you moved here, you had entered a quilt into the main quilt show. And it was crossing the time that you were moving, so you just had it shipped here. And you had an Apple AirTag in the box, I think, like taped inside the box.
Yep.
And so we went and picked up the package from the UPS store, and I put it in the back of my car, and I forgot it was there. And you were like, "Are you driving around with my quilt?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it's in the back of my car. It's been there for 2 weeks."
Yep. That one, that was actually this quilt, which was up in Maine.
That's right. That's right.
That was this quilt right here, and I didn't sew it into this quilt because a lot of times I'll put it behind the label of my quilt because it makes a nice pocket. A lot of times I'm doing the corners, so it makes a perfect pocket to put the AirTag in. So I didn't have a place to put it actually in this quilt, so I just like stuck a piece of paper inside the box and put the AirTag in there. I even labeled it, so whenever they received my quilt and saw this weird piece of paper, it said, "This is an Apple AirTag, like, just be aware that this box is being tracked, blah, blah, blah." Just so that way nobody freaked out, was like, "What is this? What is happening?"
Well, maybe there would be a good compromise, right? Like, maybe a good compromise could be some sort of disclaimer on the application that if you're going to put a tracking device in your quilt, you're letting them know, and then perhaps they're doing something different with those. So I don't know. I'm solutioning things that maybe I shouldn't be. But
I don't know. I just know that shows are becoming aware of tracking devices in quilts because it's not just me. There's a large community that is actually starting to do it. And so some shows have become aware of it, and due to safety reasons, they have decided not to allow that.
Fair
so
enough.
just
it's their decision.
Absolutely. Read the rules. Read the rules. That's the biggest thing. Biggest takeaway. Read the rules and that'll tell you for sure.
So all of these are tips for how to enter a quilt into a show. And I think that's kind of like it. Read the rules, know what you're getting into. It's pretty straightforward. You read the rules, read them thoroughly, and understand what they're saying, and ask a friend if you don't understand. Let's talk more about the personal aspect of it, right? So the very first time you entered a show, did you expect to get a ribbon? Like, what was your... Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I entered a show, I absolutely expected a ribbon.
Did you really?
I did, because the first quilt that I entered into a show was the conductive thread quilt,
Oh,
the
yeah, that was
technology quilt.
interactive.
It was interactive, right?
Right.
So I truly did expect a ribbon because this was something that the judges had never seen before. It was unusual. It was different. Like, I was excited to see their reaction to it and everything. Now, come to find out, it needed to actually hang in the show when the judging was happening, which means it couldn't have been hooked up to the computer. And so they didn't see the full effect of it, right? Like, they just saw, hey, this weird technology board in the corner. Well, that's a really cool embellishment. Like, that's what they thought it was. So they didn't know what it was. They didn't get to see it in action. They didn't get the full effect.
So I'm guessing there was no ribbon for that.
No ribbon for that one. And then the other quilt that I had entered was a mini, and I wasn't perfect on that quilt by any stretch of the imagination. It had like seams that were like flopping around, and it was not great. It had cat hair on it. It was not great. So unfortunately, I didn't get any ribbons, and honestly, the feedback on it was not great. Like, it kind of
that was my worry, is the feedback. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but I know you've shared with me that feedback prevented you from entering shows for a while. It was really harsh for you.
Yeah, it was a lot harder than I expected to get judged on.
Yeah, especially if you're like, I'm going to get a ribbon, and then you're like, too much cat hair.
Yeah.
What?
So, but a lot of times I enter quilt shows, again, to get my name out there, to get my name and get my quilter's name out there. A lot of times, like, Nancy's, why did I forget her name? Nancy's quilting is stunning a lot of times. And I want, like on Daydreamer Butterfly Effect, I want people to see that quilting and how amazing she is at it. So a lot of times I want to get that out into the community where people can see it and enjoy it and, maybe be inspired by it. So a lot of times I just want to get my name out there and show people what I'm working on or what I've worked on. And the ribbon, although very, very nice, I've now learned to like tailor my expectations. And if I get a ribbon, awesome. If I don't, you know what? At least I've gotten my name out there.
So let's talk about that very first ribbon that you got. What was the first quilt that won a ribbon?
It was Daydreamer Butterfly Effect.
And we did that one together.
Yep, we sure did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were on a live stream when you pieced that.
Yep. So
I didn't help him.
I mean, you kind of did, because that one's nicknamed Charm Not Charm Quilt.
Yeah. So I had gathered a few content creators. This is years ago. The video, it's buried. It's so old.
Yeah.
But if I had told everybody to get 2 yards of fabric and a charm pack, and we would come together and do a live stream together and just show everybody what we were going to make. And Ian went and bought a charm pack. That's what he thought he was buying. And it was a layer cake that showed up.
Yep.
And so it was not a charm pack, but
I ran with it.
He ran with it.
I ran with it. And I entered that one into the North Texas Quilt Festival. And I entered it into the modern category. I feel like it's one of those weird quilts, because it could go into like more traditional, but it can also go into modern. Like it can go two different ways. So I put it into modern, and it ended up winning a blue ribbon. So I thought honorable mention at most. Like, if I was to get a ribbon, honorable mention. And then somebody went to the show before I did, and they sent me a picture. I think it was Nancy, actually. She sent me a picture, and she's like, "We won a blue ribbon!" And I was like, "What?" So awesome. That was the moment that I got bit by the ribbon bug.
Oh, he has the ribbon bug so bad.
I know.
And that's so funny, because I remember when you were putting that one together, you did not think it was show worthy.
No.
You were like, no. And Nancy was like, no, I think you should. I think you should. I think you should. And you ended up deciding to put it in just to help get Nancy's name out there. I remember you were really frustrated with yourself because there was a little piece of the border where you were just a little too shy, and so you had to fussy cut and put something in there, but the fabric didn't repeat the way you had wanted it to. And literally, like, the fabric's still going in the same direction, so nobody would notice this. I still have a hard time picking it out, but you know exactly where that is. And that one little flaw was keeping you from wanting to enter it into a quilt show.
Yeah.
I remember that.
That, and when we put it together on the live stream, I honestly didn't think I was going to keep that quilt. I thought it was going to be a throwaway quilt. Like I would, make it and then give it to a friend or give it to somebody for Christmas or birthday or whatever. I wasn't intending to keep that one.
Until the quilting.
Well, even like when I put the top together, I was kind of like, oh, I kind of like it. and then Nancy did all the amazing quilting, and I was like, oh,
I really like it.
I really like
It's
this
mine.
one. I'm keeping this one. So, no, it was supposed to be kind of a throwaway quilt, and because when I was putting it together, I wasn't precise. I was just like, close enough, whatever, it's fine. I didn't take the time to slow down and match seams and do all the things that you're supposed to do. And then whenever I got it all together and was like, oh dang, I should have like been more careful so that way my triangles aren't like halfway off from each other. But I've gotten. It's funny that quilt judges, like there are so many different personalities in judging that it's crazy because literally that quilt has gone to one show and the judge has come back on their comments and said, your binding is too tight. It's ruffled. It's too tight. And then the literal next show, they complimented my binding. So it was like this weird, like, your binding's too tight. Your binding is great. Huh? So, that's the other thing about quilt shows is the judging aspect of it. And you can't get discouraged because what one judge likes, another one won't. And what one doesn't like, another one will. And it really is, even though that they try to be as unbiased as possible, they're going to have their own opinion on it. And so you're going to get difference in opinion on things. So one quilt that wins a first place ribbon in one show will get nothing in another. Well, it's really crazy.
So Brandy from why am I blanking on her podcast? Yes, thank you. I'm having a hard time with names today. But Brandy is a certified quilt judge. And she actually mentioned to me, we've talked about this a few times. She actually mentioned that it's not as subjective as people think. It's not always about what they liked more or didn't like more, unless everything is absolutely weighed exactly the same. But part of the struggle is judges get a very short amount of time with that quilt.
Yes.
So it's like they're judging you on the couple of things that they saw. So there might be one little spot in your binding where they saw that and they're like, okay, the binding's crap.
Right.
But then somebody else might see a mitered corner on the other side of the quilt absolutely perfectly. And they're like, your binding was perfect.
Yeah.
But they only saw it for just a couple seconds. And there's so many that move that you don't necessarily remember everything.
Do you know the average amount of time that a judge gets with your quilt?
Less than 5 minutes.
It's usually about 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It is usually 2 to 3 minutes. And in that 2 to 3 minutes,
they have to form an opinion and give you some feedback.
And they have to look over everything.
Yep. It's quick.
So it is, and I think that was an eye-opening experience because I've worked with some show chairs and some show organizers and stuff like that. I've heard behind the scenes and, tips and tricks and that kind of thing. And it's amazing to me that they get so little time because some shows have like 500 quilts and they have to get through them so incredibly quickly. So that is another thing to remember is just because your quilt didn't get a ribbon or you got a comment that you didn't think you deserved or are disappointed with or whatever, they get so little time to actually take in that whole quilt and look
those
at it.
comments, the comments that they're giving you are unique to, at least from what I've experienced. They seem to be unique to your judge's 2 or 3 minutes with your quilt. It's not, well, I don't like this one because I saw that one and now I don't like yours.
No.
It's not that at all.
No.
But anyway.
It is very specific to your quilt and they're not judging them left or right or any other way. It's literally they're looking at your quilt. They are looking at the techniques. They're looking at the...
Brandy said she has like a checklist. She's like boom, 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 and goes through it and then rates you based on that.
Absolutely. So. That's exactly how it should go. And it's important to remember that. So some shows, now we talk about like shows giving feedback. Doesn't always happen.
I didn't get feedback from the Virginia State Fair.
Yeah.
So and I should have. I think maybe it just got lost in the mail. I'm
Oh.
not sure.
Hmm.
Sean got feedback. He got a
Oh.
report card, but I know I got an honorable mention for my
Right.
quilt, but I have no idea what I could have done to get a blue ribbon or
Yeah.
what I did that got me the green honorable mention ribbon because there
Right.
was no feedback. I
Right.
got no feedback.
That is one of the hardest things. Unfortunately, we're not going to get feedback from Dallas. Dallas doesn't do feedback.
Sure.
And my honorable mention for Daydreamer Butterfly Effect, I love that I got honorable mention, but I don't know why. Like, I don't know what aspects of it made that honorable mention worthy quilts. So it's really interesting, you know, when you go into a quilt show, you're not always going to get feedback. A lot of the shows will tell you when you will get feedback. Again, read that rule book.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And they'll tell you if you're going to get feedback or not. Some shows won't. Totally cool. They just get to choose what they want to put in, and you know, you just find out, oh, I didn't get a ribbon, or oh, hey, they thought this was a first place worthy quilt. You know, who knows? But a lot of times, a lot of the shows do. North Texas Quilt Festival does, and I always am so interested in finding out what it was that caused them to rate it the way that they did, or you know, what can I improve upon, or what can I do better. What they say is not gospel. It's not 100% like, oh, you must do this from now on. It's in that short amount of time that they were looking at it, they saw that one thing. You got, you know, either higher marks or lower marks for whatever reason. And so I look at those as, you know, ways to improve, but also I don't always agree with what they say. And I'm like, well, you know, they saw it that way. I don't agree with that. You know,
Move on.
you move on. So Leo, poor Leo, he's done so well in some shows, and then in other shows they just like don't even see it, and it's amazing.
I remember. Was it 2021? I can't remember if it was 2020. I think it was 2021. I went to the Fredericksburg Sew Expo, and Jason and I always go together. And he likes seeing the quilt, so we go. That's our thing. He always. Now I go with quilter friends, and he shows up. He drives himself down there, shows up for an hour at the end of the day, and then we grab lunch. So he and I were there, and we were walking up and down the aisle, and it was the middle of the day, and we decided we were going to go sit over in the cafeteria and have a hot dog. So we get the food, and I'm sitting at the table, and this quilt of a lion is sitting there, and it's just looking at me. And I had seen it a couple times already, and I just remember looking at that, thinking how beautiful it was. It was called Leo the Lion, and I was like, I love this quilt. I love this quilt. And so I think I even showcased it on my recap video. And then later you're like, oh, I know that quilter. I was like, what? Yeah, like his work was so stunning, but I don't think there was a ribbon on that quilt.
There was not. There was not.
I remember telling Jason, I was like, that one should hit, like, that was it for me. I was like, that's the first place. Like, absolutely. Hands down.
It really is surprising sometimes going to shows and seeing what wins a ribbon and what doesn't win a ribbon.
Speaking of, I remember being at, and this isn't meant to be like, oh, your stuff is so much better, but maybe just take this as a little bit of encouragement. There's a quilt shop that I went to that's been a year or two now ago. It's a decent sized quilt shop. And there was a quilt inside of the shop that was hanging above some fabric, and it had a blue ribbon attached to it. And so I had never entered it into a show. So immediately in my head, I was like, ooh, a blue ribbon quilt. That's a perfect quilt, right? Like there's nothing wrong. So I started looking at it to kind of inspect it. Points weren't matching all over the place. Seams were not nested up. It was a visually impactful quilt from a few feet back where you couldn't see that things weren't perfectly lined up. But when you got up close and looked at it, it was not a perfect quilt. Yeah. But it still won a blue ribbon.
Yep. Same with Butterfly Daydreamer Effect. Butterfly Daydreamer Effect.
We knew what you meant.
That one. You know, I never thought that would win a blue ribbon, but even with all of my mistakes and my imperfections in it, it still won a blue ribbon. And there is no perfect quilt out there. There's not. There's always a little.
There's always room for growth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's always room for growth.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's even if you don't, and that's what I hear a lot of times is somebody will say in my chat or somebody will say somewhere like, oh, my quilts aren't perfect. Oh, my quilts aren't,
Mine aren't either.
good enough. And I really had to get over that stigma of my work not being good enough, because it is good enough. And at the very least, you get to have your quilt on display. You get to take if you're in the area, you get to take a photo with it. You can be like, oh, that's my quilt. I did that. I made that. I did that.
So let's talk a little bit about that. You go to a quilt show, you have a quilt on display. I've seen this happen for you. I've seen you navigate the quilt show like this. But talk to us a little bit about that feeling that you get when you're walking along and you turn the corner and there's your quilt.
It's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling. The feeling that I like a little bit more, like it's cool to see the quilt hanging up. What's really cool is like having people stand in front of it and listening to them chat. Like that is the most fun thing, because I'll be like, what are they saying? Do they like it? Are they oh
I remember your 4-letter word quilt.
Yep.
The bananas quilt.
Yep.
4-letter word, starts with S, ends with T. There's an H and I in the middle. Figure it out for yourself. But I remember when you did it, because he made it with banana fabric, and it calls to mind the Gwen Stefani No Doubt song.
Yep.
This is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. So I remember when that happened, I remember you telling me the story about somebody seeing the quilt and then bopping along to the song in front of the quilt.
Yes, there were 2 people standing in front of the quilt, and I was just kind of like looking over at them and being like, oh, I wonder what they're saying. And then all of a sudden, one of the ladies was like, bum, 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 bum. And I was like, I know exactly what's happening. And I went up to her and I was like, ma'am, I couldn't help notice you dancing. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, no, that's my quilt. I wanted that to happen. Like I wanted that.
Thank you for dancing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it's really fun. I kind of wish I could hide a microphone in some of the quilts to hear what people.
Privacy violation.
That's a bit too much, I know, but it's really interesting. Like when I was at the Ellis County Quilt Show, Margot was hanging up in the show, and I would pass by that quilt, and almost every time I passed by, somebody was looking at it, and it would always be interesting to just kind of like pass by and then like hang back a little bit and just listen to them. And I would normally be like, oh, that's my quilt, or whatever, and they're like, oh, it's lovely, and it's really cool to hear people's opinions on it. And not everyone's going to love every single quilt that you do, but it's fun to get that organic and like see what everybody thinks of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So if you are out there, maybe we've got some folks out there that are interested in entering a quilt into a show. I think the first rule is read the rule book, know what you're getting into. We've already covered that ad nauseum.
Yep.
But how do we, I think I have another tip, and then I'd like for you to, maybe we can expand on that, or if there's more that you have. I think the other tip that I have is don't set yourself up expecting first place ribbon or even honorable. Don't expect those things, because if you do and you don't get it, you're going to be disappointed.
Absolutely.
Yes, your quilt is rated or judged based on your own work. However, your placing, how you're going to place, what you're going to get out of that is very largely based on the competition.
Yep.
So it could be your best work, but if you're going up against a quilt that's been quilted by Angela Walters, and I don't know, you might not. And then also just kind of keep in mind that I think I've seen this happen. I have seen quilts and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is stunning. But it was a kit.
Yep.
It was a kit.
Yep.
It was beautiful. It was beautifully quilted. The Tula Pink butterfly quilt was one of them. It was custom quilted. It was gorgeous. I voted for it for Viewer's Choice. It didn't win a ribbon. And I think the reason why it didn't win a ribbon is because it was a kit. And people are like, okay, yeah, I could do that too. Right? They wanted to see something that was visually inspiring, that wasn't just fabric and a pattern that they had bought together.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
kind of keep that in mind.
Definitely keep that in mind. Definitely keep in mind a lot of times it costs to enter quilt shows.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
So
I spent like $140 to enter Quilts into Dallas.
Yeah, yeah, it can cost a lot to enter shows.
Unless you're a member of the guild and it's a guild show.
That too.
Great reason to join a guild.
Absolutely. That is
Some people join guilds just to enter the Quilts for show.
I'm a member of Austin because I entered the show last year, and so I'm technically a member of the modern in modern. I don't know. I think it's the modern in Austin, but I joined specifically to be a part of the show. So a lot of times you'll get discounts on entering shows and stuff like that. Some guilds don't allow for outside
That's right.
entry, so you have to join the guild in order to
and then it's
enter
free,
the show.
but
right.
sometimes.
So yep. So there's a lot of things around that, and I had another thought, but it disappeared on me. So I don't know.
Sorry,
It happens.
It'll
No,
show
it's
up.
fine. I think, and it's gone.
Just try.
Yeah.
And don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry that your quilt isn't good enough, but also don't think that it is the bee's knees and it's the best thing since sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
Understand that it's going to get some feedback. I know you had an experience where the feedback was particularly harsh for you,
Yeah.
but I have had my feedback, while it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. There were like, okay, well, here's some good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and here's maybe one thing that you can grow on.
I think a lot of people are really worried about that feedback, and I
was.
remember. Yeah, I remember you like.
I didn't
freaking
want to
out.
read it.
Yeah, I know you were kind of really upset about getting feedback, and the first time entering the quilt show was the worst feedback I've gotten from the whole experience. The other ones, a lot of times I agree with them on the feedback. I'm like, yeah, I could have done that better. Yeah, I needed to slow down on that part, whatever. So a lot of times I agree with them, and then if I don't agree with them, I'm like, man, that's their opinion on it. That's fine, whatever. But usually the feedback is not terrible, and it's not hard to digest.
Nope. Mine was like, and sometimes there's no comments. It's just like A, B, C, D, right? Like whatever the grade might be.
A lot of times they'll do like check marks. They'll do like negative marks, check plus. Like there's a lot of calligraphy type things in it.
Every show is different.
Yeah, it is.
Every show is different.
Yeah, hieroglyphics. You're like, what is this one?
What is the upside down frowny face with the thumbs up? I don't understand.
I feel really bad for the scribes that do those shows because a lot of times the judges are not the ones who are writing down their comments. Usually a lot of times the judges are looking strictly at the quilt and they're dictating to the scribe
that makes sense.
What they want to mark down, like what scoring they want to give, what comments do they want to give. And so those poor scribes are sitting there just like and so it's a fast process. So if you want to volunteer to help the judges and you want to scribe, just be ready to write your wrist off. It goes so fast. Yep.
I feel like we've covered everything with shows.
I feel like we have.
I
feel like I had another point, but I can't remember it.
I don't know. I will tell you, so Karen Brown from Just Get It Done Quilts, she has a social circle that you can pay for, the YouTube perks thing, right?
Right.
And I've been paying for that for a while, and she hosts a monthly Zoom for that. So I haven't been to one in a while, and I want to go back.
Yeah.
Like it just never works out for me schedule-wise. But one of the very first Zooms that we went on where you got to ask her questions and interact with her, I hadn't entered into even a guild show. It's been a couple of years. Hadn't even entered into a guild show before. And I asked her, I was like, what if I want to enter a quilt into a show? What do you suggest? And her recommendation was start with your guild.
Yep.
Start with your guild.
Yes.
So if you are out there and you don't know where to start, don't start by submitting quilts to QuiltCon.
Oh, that's what it was.
Okay.
That's what it was. I figured it out.
Don't start with the QuiltCon stuff or if you do, don't expect to automatically get in because there is a lot of competition to get in. Start with a small local show.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thought that I had was talking about juried shows.
Oh.
Juried shows versus non-juried shows. So like Dallas Quilt Show and North Texas Quilt Festival, those are non-juried shows, which means pretty much they're going to keep accepting quilts until they hit their capacity number. And if you enter, more than likely you're going to get in. Juried shows are shows that have a panel or a jury who look at all the quilts
and then decide who gets in.
Exactly. And QuiltCon is one of those juried shows. And it's interesting because you were talking about, comments on quilts and stuff like that. What we were talking about ribbons and like which one's winning ribbons, and we're like, well, why didn't that one win a ribbon or whatever? What people get rejected was sometimes when quilts get rejected one year, they'll enter it again the next year and it gets accepted. So it's really interesting. Like, don't get discouraged if your quilt, if you put it into a juried show and it gets rejected for that year. I say rejects, they're not rejects, they're beautiful. Don't get discouraged by that, because what doesn't make it one year could possibly make it the next, and it just depends on the jury.
Yep.
So
keep trying.
Keep trying. Do your work, show off your work, and start with. I think that's a really great tip. Is start with the guild. Start with your guild.
Your local
guild,
fairs, your state fairs. Those are really good places to just kind of get your feet wet a little bit, and then you can delve into some of the more competitive areas. So
start winning ribbons, like I have. You've won a ribbon.
Yeah, well, yes.
We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you there. We're gonna get your wall of quilts, your wall of ribbons, like I have.
That's not my end game.
I know.
Like the ribbons are nice. The prizes are nice. The accolades are nice. Like, who doesn't want to be the center of attention and be like, I won this? But also at the same time, like, sometimes I just want people to see what I did.
Yeah.
And I just want my quilt to be on display. And that's enough.
Yeah.
I entered this year, I submitted a quilt, just one, into QuiltCon, and it didn't get accepted.
Yeah.
I had hoped it would, because it was an original design. It was something that I came up with. I didn't follow a pattern. I drew it up. I put it together. I figured it out. I did it all on my own. Beth quilted it for me. And I thought that would make it, because it wasn't a pattern and it wasn't a kit and it wasn't anything else, I thought that would give it that boost, and it still didn't make it. So maybe I'll try it again next year. We'll see what happens. But I actually was not as disappointed when I got the rejection letter as I thought I would be, because I was like, okay, well, it's really stiff competition. It doesn't mean that my quilt's not beautiful.
Yes.
It just means that there were hundreds or thousands of quilts that were submitted, and they only had space to display blank. And when I go and I'm looking at those quilts, they really are the best of the best. Like I've seen quilts there and I'm like, yeah, okay, I get why you didn't take mine. You know what I mean? Like, come on. you know?
I've been at shows and been like, oh, now I see why I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. That makes sense. I will say though, it's fun to a lot of shows run either like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or I usually go towards the end, because a lot of times
the quilts on like Saturday or Sunday.
Right. And since I work during the day, a lot of times I'll go on Saturday when I'm available. I will scour social media. I will scour Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I've literally scoured social media sometimes looking for my quilt, and every now and again I will see my quilt pop up. Like I'll look out throughout the day, be like, oh, there's nothing there, and then a couple hours later I'll go back and I'll be like, oh, that's my quilt, I see my quilt, and like I could be like, oh, it's got a ribbon on it, or oh, I didn't make a ribbon. Okay, like
I remember that. So when I put my Twilight Sparkle, my cathedral window quilt in for the doll quilt category at the Virginia State Fair, Sean and I both entered into the doll quilt category, and neither of us were going to be able to get there until like the end of the show. And so it had been on display for like a week, and I had no idea. And I kept looking and looking and looking, and I couldn't find anything. And then somebody had been at the festival, and they took a picture of their quilt, which I think was hanging next to mine, or whatever.
Two down. Yeah.
So somehow there ended up a picture of my cathedral window in the Facebook group, and you could see the green ribbon next to it. You couldn't see what the ribbon said because of the way they had it displayed, but you could see there was a green ribbon on it, and I screamed and was so excited.
Yeah.
It was. There was such a little bit of, like, I was so excited. I remember when we went to the state fair, we were walking around trying to find the quilt, and we got to where the doll quilts were, and they were hanging way up high, like 12 feet up on a wall.
So badly displayed.
All of them were. Even the ones that they were hanging from the rafters, it was horrible.
Yeah.
But it was underneath a table for a quilt guild. And so I walked up and I'm looking at it, and they're like, "Oh, do you have a quilt up there?" I was like, "Yep, the cathedral window." Like I just want to be like, "Yep, that one's mine. Yep, that's mine." I I remember that.
It's
It
a
was
good
it was it
feeling.
was really exciting.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to be excited too, but they were just kind of like, "Oh,
Okay. It happens.
I was like, could you just be like, "Oh, nice job."
Yep.
Like, "Oh."
It happens. Like,
Uh,
find your own joy. Find your own joy. So, oh, I forgot the biggest rule at quilt shows.
Sure.
Don't touch them.
Oh yeah.
Don't
Don't
touch
touch them. But
Don't
ask
touch the
the
quilts.
people with the white gloves to show you the back.
White glove service.
And sometimes you want to see the back because
Sometimes.
sometimes that quilting is better from the back.
Sometimes,
you
yeah.
can really appreciate what's out
Yeah.
there.
And then sometimes they can have a surprise. They can have a big surprise. Like this one. No, I'm just kidding. It's cool. It doesn't have anything too crazy. But sometimes you can, I've at QuiltCon, when I've volunteered to take down the quilts, so much fun. If you go to QuiltCon, volunteer to take down the quilts because it's so fun to actually get up close and personal with those quilts.
Right.
I took one down because I'm tall, so they always have me lifting them off the thing. And I lifted it off and started bringing it down. And the back, like the front of it was kind of like monotone color and blah, blah, blah. The back was like rainbow bright. And it was like, whoa! It was a complete juxtaposition of color. And it was
Wow.
like, oh, hey. So yeah, always ask if they have white glove service there, ask them to take a look at the
Flip
back.
it over. Let me
Yeah.
see the back side,
Yeah.
baby. Okay, that just got really weird. On that note,
Yeah.
I think it's probably time to wrap our little chit chat.
Sounds good. I think we had a good one.
Yeah, we did.
Hopefully.
But before we finish, I have a card for you.
Oh,
So I'll let you take a look at that.
again from Cotton Cuts.
Would you like me to read this one too? Or do you want to try?
Surprise! Well, we couldn't give away the big secret yet. What? You'll have to wait just a little longer to find out. We had a little fun. Wait, that's not my colorway?
No, that's not your colorway. But do you want to tell the people where they're
Take my scraps!
Do you want to tell the people where they
Oh
can
my
find
gosh.
out where your colorway is?
Yeah, so that's why I was a little surprised with the envelope because Kim and I had talked about doing the big reveal on a live with Cotton Cuts. So I was very surprised with that. I was like, oh, I thought whatever. So apparently I'm still doing that. So
You're still doing
apparently
that.
I'm going to do a live stream with Cotton Cuts and Kim, and I'm going to get the big reveal at that point because apparently this wasn't.
Well, we do know that you are not.
I'm not doing hummingbird.
Or are you?
I'm done. I'm done. Good night.
All right, Ian, who was a ghost quilt. Hey, friends, thank you so much for tuning in with us. It's been a blast talking about all things quilt show.
Yeah.
Ian, I hope one day I have a wall with all the ribbons like you have.
I hope I want you to get a blue ribbon.
Listen, I just want the ribbon that's the size of your face.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
Anyway, you want to sign us off?
Well, this wasn't perfect.
But it was finished. And finished.
It's better than perfect.
There you go. We'll see you guys all next time.
Bye.